The year is 1987. Miami Vice was the coolest show on TV. Your Walkman's pumping Michael Jackson. And somewhere in the world behind closed doors, a car is being built that's so fast it can cover the length of a football field in under a second. And if you could somehow maintain that speed, it will get you from New York to Boston in less than an hour. Yeah, you heard that right. The 1980s weren't just neon lights and synth pop. They were the golden age of speed. But here's the twist. During the entire 80s, only 11 production cars managed to break the 160 mile per hour barrier. And we're betting you've never heard of at least 3 of them. These aren't just cars, they're engineering time machines, turbocharged monsters, wrapped in lightweight bodies, built by madmen and visionaries who decided physics was optional. These 11 engineered time machines didn't just define the 80s. They rewrote the rules of physics with turbochargers, lightweight materials, and enough attitude to match any Miami Vice episode. We're talking about the first street legal car to shatter the 200 mile per hour mark, a German machine that made Ferraris nervous. We'll be counting down the absolute fastest machines that money could buy when Ronald Reagan was president and MTV still played music videos. So, think you know the fastest car of the 80s? Spoiler alert, it's not a Lambo. And the number 1 spot? Let's just say, it'll blow your Reebok pumps off your feet. Buckle up, the countdown starts now. 11. De Tomaso Pantera GT5S 160 miles per hour. Picture this, it's 1985. While most car companies are busy choking their engines with emissions gear and dialing down the fun, one car shows up like it missed the memo and lit it on fire. Enter the De Tomaso Pantera GT5S, a 5.8-liter Ford V8 under the hood that had zero concern for clean air, and a design that looked like it just drove off the set of Miami Vice. This wasn't just another sports car. It was a rolling middle finger to every regulation, choking the life out of performance, wrapped in Italian styling with American muscle under the hood. The GT5S looked like it could have rolled straight out of Blade Runner, with flared wheel arches and a sculpted front spoiler that wasn't just for looks. That revised front spoiler wasn't just for show. It helped keep this beast planted at speeds that would make most 80s cop cars give up the chase. And that rear mid-engine layout, it gave the GT5S handling that felt less like a muscle car and more like a street legal race machine. Here's where it gets wild. While Ferrari was fussing over V12s and Porsche was perfecting flat 6s, the Pantera said, screw all that. It hit 160 miles per hour with a pushrod V8 straight out of Detroit. No turbos, no tech, just raw power. And get this, only 187 GT5S models were ever built. That's fewer than the number of Knight Rider episodes. These weren't slapped together on some assembly line. They were individual works of art with quirks and personality. Each one was built by hand, the kind of car where no 2 door handles fit exactly the same way. Were the door handles misaligned? Probably. Did anyone care? Not when it was dusting Ferraris in a straight line. The 80s were full of cars that compromised, trading power for emissions, feel for comfort. The Pantera GT5S stood alone, loud, rebellious, unapologetically analog. It kept a big V8 when everyone else was downsizing. It stayed rear-wheel drive when all-wheel drive was becoming trendy. And it proved you didn't need computers to make a car fast, just good engineering and the willingness to ignore the rule book. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. And in 1985, that statement was loud enough to drown out the entire industry. 10. BMW M1. 162 miles per hour. What if I told you BMW once built a supercar that could leave a Countach in its dust? Meet the BMW M1, the only mid-engine car the brand ever mass-produced, and a machine so out of character for BMW, it might as well have been built during a full moon. This wasn't just another fast Bavarian coupe. The M1 was born from a scrapped racing project that got too fast, too wild, and too advanced for the rule book. So what did BMW do? They turned it into a road car that could hit 162 miles per hour, slapped on license plates, and unleashed it on the streets anyway. The M1 story reads like an 80s action movie plot. BMW initially partnered with Lamborghini to develop this exotic machine, because who better to design something impractical and insane? But when that deal fell apart, they pulled off a cinematic comeback. They assembled a makeshift coalition of Italian designers and German engineers to finish the job. They brought in Giorgetto Giugiaro to pen the body and handed the engineering to their in-house motorsport division. Think of it as the Expendables, but with engineers. The result? A 3.5-liter screaming all the way to 7,000 RPM. For comparison, that was more power than a Ferrari 308 GTB and almost as much as a contemporary Corvette with half the cylinders and none of the bloat. Now here's where it gets cinematic. When rule changes killed its Group 5 racing debut, BMW didn't shelve the M1. They built an entire racing series around it. Instead of scrapping the project, they created the Pro Car Championship, a support series for Formula One where legends like Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet raced identical M1s. Imagine that, actual F1 drivers using your road car as their weekend ride. Only 453 M1s were ever built. Just 399 of those were street legal, making each one rarer than an honest politician. The rest, they were track-only monsters. What made the M1 special wasn't just the numbers, it was how it drove. That mid-engine layout gave it balance no other BMW had ever offered, while the suspension was tuned by the same guys who worked on the brand's championship-winning touring cars. The steering didn't have power assistance, meaning you needed forearms like Schwarzenegger to park it at the mall. But once you got moving, it communicated every bump like Morse code. Fun fact. That same M88 engine that was in the M1 would live on in other BMWs for decades. BMW transplanted it into the M635 CSI and the first-gen M5 cars that redefined what a performance sedan could be. So while the M1 may not have been a commercial smash, its DNA lived on in some of the greatest performance sedans ever built. It showed BMW could go toe-to-toe with Italy's finest and win. It laid the foundation for the M division to evolve from motorsport crew to performance royalty. Without the M1, there would be no M3, no M5, no Nürburgring lap time bragging rights. It was the car that made Germans realize Lamborghini wasn't the only game in town when it came to mid-engine madness. 9. Lotus Esprit Turbo SE, 165 miles per hour. The Lotus Esprit Turbo SE looked like it came straight out of a James Bond movie, because it literally did. Remember that iconic underwater car from The Spy Who Loved Me? This was its angrier turbocharged twin, with a license to thrill that actually existed in the real world. While most 80s supercars tried to outmuscle each other with bigger engines, the Esprit Turbo SE proved you could hit 165 miles per hour. With just 4 cylinders and a whole lot of British ingenuity. And then there's the shape, wedge, pop-up headlights, aero-sculpted body. Designer Peter Stevens created a profile so sharp you could probably open letters with it. But more importantly, it sliced through air like a hot knife through butter. Those headlights didn't rise so much as they emerged, like the car was judging slower traffic. People didn't walk past the Esprit. They stopped. They stared. Valets fumbled keys. Kids pointed. Grown adults whispered. But what really made it dangerous? The weight, or lack of it. The whole car weighed less than a ton. That's lighter than a modern Mazda Miata. Except the Esprit had a mid-mounted turbocharged engine and could run with Ferraris that cost 3 times as much. The aluminum chassis and fiberglass body kept things featherweight, while the balance made it feel telepathic through corners. The interior was pure 80s time capsule. You got velour seats that felt like your grandma's couch, toggle switches that clicked with satisfying precision, and a steering wheel thin enough to make modern drivers complain. The dashboard angled toward the driver like a fighter jet's cockpit, because Lotus knew you wouldn't be looking at the passenger anyway when you were busy hitting triple-digit speeds. Only 1,200 Turbo SEs were ever made between 1987 and 1993. Each one was hand-built in Hethel, England, by technicians who probably brewed a pot of tea between every panel installation. Build quality? Characterful is the polite term. Panel gaps wandered. The electrical system had a mind of its own. But when the boost kicked in, none of that mattered. The Esprit Turbo SE proved that lightweight, clever, and just a little unhinged could outperform the biggest names in the game. Today, cars like the Alpine A110 and Porsche came and carried that torch. But this was the blueprint for bravery. The Lotus Esprit Turbo SE didn't just look like a Bond car, it was a British underdog. 8. Chevy Corvette ZR1 prototype, 180 miles per hour. What if I told you Chevrolet built a Corvette prototype so fast? They weren't sure if they should even put it into production. The ZR1 wasn't just another performance variant. It was America's stealth mission to humiliate European supercars at their own game. While Ferrari was perfecting their Testarossa and Porsche was tweaking their 911 turbos, a small team of GM engineers were crafting something that could hit 180 miles per hour wearing a bow tie badge. Deep inside a lockdown facility, a handpicked group of engineers operated with near-military secrecy. No press leaks, no public teasers, just a classified goal. Build a car with Ferrari-like precision, fighter jet speed, and a Chevy badge on the nose. The development process was more classified than CIA files. Only a handful of engineers knew the full specs. Working in a secured area they called the Skunk Works. No press releases, no teaser photos, just a handful of prototype vehicles built to prove America could play in the 180 mile per hour club. Testing happened undercover at GM's proving grounds in Michigan. Engineers would show up before sunrise, make high-speed passes until tires boiled, then disappear before anyone could snap a photo. The 5.7-liter V8 under the hood wasn't some modified truck engine. It was a clean sheet designed with aluminum blocks, 4 valves per cylinder, and enough engineering tricks to make European manufacturers do double takes. Only 7 fully functional prototypes ever existed. Each one served as a test bed for technologies that would trickle down to production cars years later. The digital dashboard was space-age stuff for 1986, showing oil pressure, coolant temperature, and boost levels with crisp LCD readouts. The ABS brakes were borrowed from GM's European subsidiaries because nothing in the American pot spin could handle repeated stops from triple-digit speeds. One prototype hit 181 miles per hour, just enough to edge out the Ferrari Testarosa's advertised top speed. Not bad for a car you could mistake for a midlife crisis from 30 feet away. The prototypes had quirks that never made it to production. Some used the experimental 6-speed manual transmission that required 2 hands to shift smoothly. The fiberglass body panels were light enough to lift with one hand, but prone to cracking if you looked at them wrong. Driving the original prototype today is like stealing state secrets. The steering is heavy, almost analog in its purity, transmitting every road imperfection straight through your palms. After a few hard pulls, the cabin smells of hot metal and fuel vapor. No insulation, no filters, just raw speed and industrial violence. And that V8? It doesn't just rev, it rips through the RPMs with the urgency of a fighter jet on afterburners. The closer it gets to red line, the harder it pulls, like it's trying to escape Earth's gravity. The ZR1 prototype wasn't built to follow the rules. It was built to show that America could engineer like the Europeans, but faster, louder, and with a little more attitude. 7. Lamborghini Countach LP 5000 QV, 185 miles per hour. Picture this, it's 1985, and hanging on a teenager's bedroom wall right next to the Van Halen poster is a car so outrageous, it redefined what people thought was possible. The Lamborghini Countach LP 5000 QV wasn't just fast, it was an event every time it rolled down the street. That wedge shape looked like someone drove a concept car straight from an auto show onto public roads without changing a thing. The scissor doors didn't just open, they performed swinging upward like a spaceship hatch, and forever ruining normal car doors for anyone who experienced them. Under that angular bodywork lived a 5.2-liter V12 that could hit 185 miles per hour, a number that made contemporary Ferraris sweat. For perspective, that's faster than most small planes take off. The Quadrifoglio Volante version marked Lamborghini's solution to tightening emissions rules. They added 4 valves per cylinder without losing any of the engine's character. The result was 455 horsepower in an era when family sedans struggled to break 100. Here's something they don't tell you in the brochures. The car was so wide it couldn't fit into most parking spaces. Those massive rear tires measured 345 millimeters across. wider than some cars' entire wheelbases. The turning radius made 3-point turns into 15-point maneuvers. Parallel parking required the spatial awareness of a fighter pilot and the patience of a saint. Between 1985 and 1988, Lamborghini built just 610 examples of the LP5000 QV. Lamborghini brought in Lotus engineers to help refine the suspension. The result was a car that didn't just terrorize straights. It could hold its own in the corners too. And that massive rear wing? Surprisingly functional. It actually added real downforce, though it also completely blocked your rear view. Maintenance was a nightmare, reserved for specialists to deal with. The engine sat so deep in the back that changing spark plugs meant removing the rear wheels. The cam belts needed replacement every 15,000 miles and required 6 hours to do, which cost more than some people's monthly rent. Fuel consumption was laughable unless you owned stock in an oil company. But no one bought a Countach to save gas. They bought it because it made people stop, stare, and reconsider their life choices. Culturally, the Countach punched way above its production numbers. It appeared in everything from Cannonball Run to The Wolf of Wall Street. Rappers name dropped it, game designers copied it. It became the unofficial mascot of the Reagan-era dream. Fast, loud, expensive, and unapologetically extra. The LP5000 QV wasn't smooth, it wasn't comfortable, and it definitely wasn't sensible. But that was the point. It was a rolling contradictions. It was loud, uncomfortable, difficult, dramatic, impossible to ignore. The LP5000 QV's legacy lives on. In every extreme supercar that prioritizes drama over practicality, modern Lamborghinis like the Aventador still use scissor doors as a nod to their ancestor. That wedge shape inspired designers for generations. And that glorious V12 sound, you can trace a direct line to the scream of today's hybrid hypercars. 6. Aston Martin V8 Vantage Zagato, 186 miles per hour. What if I told you Aston Martin once built a car so rare, you're more likely to see a unicorn at a gas station than one of these on the road? And what if I told you that same car could outrun Ferrari's snub convention and still look like it belonged outside a country estate? The V8 Vantage Zagato wasn't your typical British GT car. It was a collaboration with Italian coach builder Zagato that resulted in one of the rarest and fastest Astons ever made. Only 52 coupes were ever produced between 1986 and 1990, making each one more exclusive than a private box at Wimbledon. The Zagato looked nothing like other Aston Martins of the era. Gone was the flowing bodywork, replaced by sharp angles and rectangular headlights that gave it a purposeful, almost aggressive stance. That signature Zagato double bubble roof wasn't just for show. It added structural rigidity while providing extra headroom. The body panels were aluminum instead of steel, saving weight without sacrificing strength. This wasn't a car designed by committee. It was a statement piece that happened to hit 186 miles per hour. Under the hood, the 5.3-liter V8 was anything but polite. It was built to humiliate Italian rivals of the era. Larger valves, higher compression, and a soundtrack like thunder cracking over Westminster. And the 186 miles per hour top speed. The top speed made it the fastest production Aston Martin ever built at the time. A record it held for nearly a decade. Only about half of the Zagatos built came to America, making them rarer than spotting a sober person at a 1980s yacht party. Without the Zagato, modern Astons wouldn't dare be this dramatic. Collectors now pay 7 figures for well-preserved examples, recognizing them as one of the last truly analog supercars. Unlike modern hypercars packed with computers, the Zagato placed all responsibility squarely on the driver's shoulders. There was no stability control to save you if you got greedy with the throttle. No ABS to prevent lockups. Just raw, unfiltered driving pleasure. It wasn't perfect. It was better than perfect. It was alive. 5. Ferrari 288 GTO, 189 miles per hour. Trust me, this car was the reason Ferrari became Ferrari. The 288 GTO wasn't designed for Sunday drives or posing outside restaurants. It was built with one purpose: to dominate. While other manufacturers were still figuring out turbocharging, Ferrari created a twin turbo V8 that could hit 189 miles per hour in 1984. That's faster than most private jets take off. The GTO was supposed to be Ferrari's answer to Group B rally racing. But when the series was scrapped, they were left with a race car that had nowhere to race. So they turned it into something even better, a road legal weapon with no rivals. Zero, nothing even came close. Under the rear deck sat a 2.9-liter twin turbocharged V8, pumping out 400 horsepower. In the early 80s, that's more than double what most sports cars made at the time. And because the engine sat so far back, it gave the car a 60% rear weight bias, which meant all that power actually made it to the pavement. No tire smoke, just violence. Now here's the wild part. The 288 GTO only weighed 2,550 pounds. That's featherweight. Ferrari stripped it down using fiberglass, Kevlar, and aluminium, deleting anything that didn't directly contribute to speed. No fluff, just fight. And you'll probably never see one. Ferrari only built 272 of them. That's fewer than the number of episodes of Magnum PI. Each one was different, full of hand-built quirks. And like most early turbo cars, it had serious lag. You could hit 60 miles per hour in first gear. The 5-speed gearbox was so tightly packed, it felt like shifting through a sniper rifle. You had to learn this car. It didn't hand you anything. What most people don't realize is how much this car shaped the future. The GTO's twin-turbo V8 became the heart of the F40. Its aerodynamics fed into the Testarossa. Even the lightweight construction philosophy carried over to every subsequent Ferrari supercar. This wasn't just a car, it was the pivot point. The moment Ferrari stopped building gentlemen's tourers and started building weapons. Today, GTOs are worth over $3 million. That's 30 times their original price. More than most blue chip stocks over the same time. Why? Not just rarity, not just performance, but because this car meant something. It marked the moment Ferrari went all in on innovation and won. Maintaining a 288 GTO isn't for the faint of heart. The turbos require specialist knowledge to rebuild. The fuel injection system uses obscure Marelli components, and the body panels are so rare, they're more scarce than some vintage art. Finding someone who can properly tune the twin turbos is like finding a doctor who still makes house calls. The 288 GTO's legacy lives on in every turbocharged Ferrari that followed. It proved forced induction could work in supercars without sacrificing reliability. It showed that lightweight materials could make up for smaller engines. Most importantly, it demonstrated that Ferrari could innovate as well as anyone, maybe better. 4. Mercedes-Benz AMG Hammer, 190 miles per hour. What if I told you Mercedes built a sedan that could outrun a Porsche 911 while carrying 4 adults in leather-lined comfort? The AMG Hammer wasn't just another tuned Mercedes. It was a hand-built masterpiece that redefined what a family car could do, based on the humble W124300E. This sleeper sedan packed a 5.6-liter V8 that could hit 190 miles per hour, making it the fastest 4-door car in the world when it debuted in 1986. And here's the twist. AMG wasn't even part of Mercedes yet. Back then, it was a tiny independent tuning shop in a Falterbach run by mad geniuses. They took the clean, conservative lines of the W124 and turned it into a silent assassin. This wasn't a makeover, it was a transformation. Think James Bond if he benched 400 pounds. The Hammer looked almost identical to a regular 300E. The only exterior clues were wide fenders to accommodate massive 16-inch wheels and a small AMG badge on the trunk. Inside, you got the same plush leather seats and wood trim as the standard car, just with a 180 mile per hour speedometer and a sports steering wheel. This was the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, a car that could destroy supercars on the Autobahn while carrying your kids to school. Only about 30 Hammers were ever built, each one customized to the buyer's specifications. Some got the 5.6-liter V8, others opted for the 6.0-liter version with 375 horsepower. A few even had special paint colors that no other Mercedes offered. The price? Around $150,000 in the 80s, more than double the cost of a standard 300E. That bought you a car built entirely by hand, with technicians spending weeks on each build. Driving the Hammer felt like discovering your accountant was a secret MMA fighter. The acceleration was brutal for a sedan, with the V8 pulling hard from idle to redline. The steering was heavy at low speeds but precise at autobahn velocities. The suspension managed to be both comfortable and controlled, a trick Mercedes still struggles with today. The only real giveaway was the exhaust note, a deep V8 rumble, completely unlike the standard car's inline 6-purr. The Hammer's legacy lives on in every AMG model today. It proved a luxury sedan could be as fast as a supercar without sacrificing practicality. More importantly, it showed Mercedes that customers would pay big money for factory-backed performance models. When Mercedes bought AMG in 1999, they were essentially purchasing the reputation built by cars like the Hammer. Maintaining a Hammer today requires deep pockets and patience. Many parts are one-off pieces that must be custom fabricated. The engines need specialist knowledge to tune properly, and the suspension components wear out faster than standard W124 parts. Finding one for sale is nearly impossible. When they do appear, prices often exceed $500,000. What made the Hammer special wasn't just the speed, it was the execution. This wasn't some stripped out race car with license plates. It had power windows, air conditioning, and a proper trunk. You could drive it daily if you want, or take it to the track on weekends. The Hammer proved performance didn't require compromise, a philosophy that defines AMG to this day. 3. Ruf BTR, 190 miles per hour. Imagine building a Porsche so extreme that even Porsche engineers shook their heads and said, "We wouldn't dare." That's the story of the Ruf BTR. A car so outrageous it made the factory 911 Turbo look like a warmed-up commuter. Alois Ruf didn't tune the 911, he rebuilt the entire car from the ground up to create something Porsche themselves wouldn't dare to make. New chassis, new aerodynamics. The BTR was a wolf in a lab coat. Surgical precision wrapped in the everyday Porsche skin. The transmission was reinforced to handle the brutal torque, while the brakes were taken from the 911 Turbo and modified further. This wasn't a bolt-on kit car. Everything was precision engineered to work together. Outside, it looked like a slightly angrier 911, but under the skin, it was a completely different animal. Think of it like a Rolex. Classic, polished, but inside, the mechanism is completely bespoke, down to the tiniest gear. Only a handful of BTRs were ever built, each one customized to the buyer's preferences. Prices started around $100,000 in the 80s, 3 times what you'd pay for a standard 911. But what you got wasn't a car. It was a hand-built road-legal race machine with a Porsche badge and Ruf soul. Maintaining a BTR today is nearly as involved as building one. Many parts are completely unique and must be fabricated from scratch if they fail. The engine requires specialist knowledge to tune properly, and the suspension components wear out faster than standard Porsche pieces. Finding someone who understands the intricacies of Ruf's twin turbo system is like finding a mechanic who speaks fluent Latin. They exist, but good luck tracking one down. What made the BTR special wasn't just the performance, it was the philosophy behind it. Alois Ruf didn't chase horsepower numbers or lap times. He focused on creating a car that felt cohesive and balanced. The power matched the brakes, which matched the suspension, which matched the chassis stiffness. Too many tuners focus on one aspect at the expense of others, but the BTR was engineered as a complete package. 2. Porsche 959, 197 miles per hour. Imagine a Porsche so far ahead of its time. It made 1980s Ferraris feel like rotary phones in the age of smartphones. That was the Porsche 959, not just a supercar, but a time machine disguised as one. When it debuted in 1986, it didn't just break speed records, it broke the rules. With a top speed of 197 miles per hour, it was faster than some planes needed for takeoff. All while looking like a slightly futuristic 911, it didn't roar onto the scene. It launched. But here's the twist. The 959 wasn't built for the road. It was born for war. Group B rally to be exact. Porsche engineered it to dominate the most dangerous motorsport of the 80s. When the series was cancelled, they pivoted, turning this beast into a street-legal spaceship. And it drove like one. The 959 introduced a revolutionary all-wheel drive system that could actively shift power between the front and rear axles in real time. Up to 80% of torque could be sent to the rear under hard acceleration, then shifted forward as needed. No one else was doing this. Not Ferrari, not Lamborghini, not even Porsche's own other models. Only 337 road cars were ever built, each one hand assembled over 400 hours. And this wasn't just about exotic materials for the sake of a spec sheet. The body combined Kevlar, aluminium, and magnesium to save weight and boost strength. Even the hollow spoke wheels were custom designed lighter than many bicycle tires. Inside, it walked a tightrope between analog charm and digital ambition. You got classic 911 vibes, but with boost gauges, a digital AWD readout, and lightweight Recaro seats. The 959's development was so secretive that even Porsche dealers didn't know the full specs. Engineers tested early prototypes on the Nürburgring with fake body panels to throw off spies. The 959 was so advanced it was literally banned in the US. It didn't meet emissions regulations, and the tech was so far ahead that even Porsche dealers didn't know how to service it. Owners had to ship their cars back to Germany for major work, a process that could take months. Today, maintaining a 959 is like restoring a spaceship. You need rare parts, expert knowledge, and very deep pockets. The twin turbo system has to be precisely tuned, and those Kevlar panels, you don't fix them, you replace them, if you can find them. Brands like Tesla owe part of their approach to what the 959 proved. You can go fast and be smart about it. A car that could slay a Ferrari Testarossa on the Autobahn, then take you home with the AC on and your luggage in the trunk. No compromises, no excuses, just brilliance, wrapped in a familiar shape. The Porsche 959 didn't just raise the bar, it was the bar. 1. Ferrari F40, 201 miles per hour. Trust me, this car was the reason the 80s ended with a bang. The Ferrari F40 wasn't just another supercar. It was Enzo Ferrari's final middle finger to the automotive world. Unveiled in 1987 to celebrate the company's 40th anniversary, this raw twin-turbo beast didn't just break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier. It torched the rulebook on what a road car could be. When most manufacturers added airbags and cup holders, Ferrari did the exact opposite. They stripped everything out. No radio, no carpeting. Just a red fabric strap to open the door. It was a rebellion on four wheels. Here's what made the F40 different. It weighed just 2,425 pounds. Despite having a full chassis and a twin-turbo V8, Ferrari engineers used Kevlar for the body panels, carbon fiber for the floor, and aluminium for the suspension components. That 2.9-liter engine produced a top speed of 201 miles per hour. For context, that's faster than most private helicopters cruise. The F40 wasn't just quick, it redefined speed for production cars. Here's the part most people don't know. The F40 almost never happened. Ferrari originally planned a luxury successor to the 288 GTO, but then Porsche dropped the 959 bombshell. Enzo wasn't having it. He ordered his team to build something faster, rawer, meaner. They did it in just 18 months. No time for polish, only purpose. Only 1,311 F40s were built, making each one more exclusive than front row tickets to a Michael Jackson concert. The first 50 examples had even more radical weight-saving measures, like Lexan windows fixed with screws instead of regulators. Early buyers shelled out $400,000, the price of a mansion in Malibu at the time. Today, try $2 million if you can even find one. But ownership comes at a cost. Maintaining an F40 is like maintaining a fighter jet. What made the F40 special wasn't just the performance, it was the philosophy behind it. This was Ferrari proving they could out-engineer anyone when they put their minds to it. The 959 might have had more technology, but the F40 had something Porsche couldn't bottle: pure, unfiltered emotion. Driving one felt dangerous in ways modern supercars have engineered out of existence. Ferrari planned to build just 400 units, but demand forced them to triple production. Even then, they couldn't keep up with orders. Wealthy collectors literally fought over allocation slots. The car developed a reputation so strong that even today, it's considered the purest expression of what a Ferrari should be. It was a moment in time, a final furious love letter from Enzo himself. The Ferrari F40 wasn't just the end of an era, it was the last Ferrari built for passion first, and everything else second. The 80s gave us more than shoulder pads and synth pop. It delivered cars that rewrote the rulebook. These machines didn't just go fast. They proved speed could come from turbocharged 4 pots, hand-built V12s, and even stealthy sedans. A Ferrari that roared past 200 miles per hour with nothing but raw carbon and twin turbos. A Porsche so advanced it made the future show up early. And who expected a Mercedes sedan to hit 190 miles per hour? Innovation wasn't optional, it was survival. So, here's the question. If you could bring home just one 80s icon, which one would it be and why? Was it the one that scared you, inspired you, or made you fall in love with driving? Drop your pick in the comments, because in the era of analog adrenaline and turbocharged dreams, every legend had a story. What's yours?